In 1988, the year I turned 20, spring, my first wife started bleeding badly. And we rushed her to the hospital. And I can still remember her screaming in pain. And we lost a baby. It still affects me to this day. That child was wanted. And things didn't quite work out between myself and my first wife. Within 18 months or so, maybe a little more, we weren't married anymore. I have been blessed, very blessed, in that I met my current wife, the woman whom I've been with for the last 27 years. Well, we wanted to have children. We tried. And I remember holding her hand in the waiting room, emergency room, and the doctor explained to us that the baby was gone, wasn't alive anymore, and that my wife would have to have a D&C, an abortion, basically, to get the dead child out. This was all within the first trimesters. I remember that clearly, and that child was wanted. That child was loved unconditionally. It still affects me to this day. It still affects my wife to this day. And my wife and I had not one, but two more losses before we were blessed with a child that showed up after a very difficult pregnancy and a very difficult birth. A child who we love, who is closing in on 20 years now. But here's the thing. With the news today in the United States, and some very deeply religious people crowing victory, my wife, both of my wives, in grief, under those types of laws that are being passed, or will be passed, in certain states down, and laws that people want passed here in Canada. In our grief, we would be questioned, or potentially questioned. My current wife, for sure, because she has the misfortune of being brown. Now, ironically enough, she comes from a country, she was born and raised in a country called El Salvador. And in El Salvador, they have these types of laws. And in prison right now are, give or take, 30 women who had miscarriages. They lost their babies. In some cases, it was in the first trimester, and they didn't even know that they were pregnant yet. They hadn't figured it out. And they're in prison for life. Because they were poor, didn't have the ability to speak for themselves, defend themselves. And they were accused of trying to abort their children. They were accused by the people who were trying to help them provide medical care. Now, I remember the doctor when my second wife and I we were sitting in that room crying, and something that stands out to me. A nurse interrupted us, and the growl that came out of him, of "not now," this low growl, as he was trying to comfort us in our loss. There will be women in the next months, days, years ahead of us, where that growl will be directed at them in their grief or their shock because they didn't realize they were pregnant and they've lost. Everyone's so damn want to make something illegal that they are going to prosecute women and make accusations who wanted their children, didn't know that they were coming, or there's circumstances that are beyond their control, that there was a loss. Instead of putting all this effort in making something illegal, all this money, all these resources, all this energy that we are expending on all of this and will continue to expend as we put people in jail, as a culture, and I'm referring to North American culture here, all that energy that we put into all of these things, if we put half of that energy, a quarter of that energy into education and health care for women, we would have more doctors comforting people who lose in these circumstances. And they would far outweigh the benefits. There wouldn't be abortions. We can't stop the losses. Because these are things that are out of our control. But people will go to jail. People like my wife. Either one of them. And that is the true victims of bullshit like what's happening today.